悪霊退散。
The PlayStation 6 is likely to release holiday 2027. Too soon or too far away. That's what this account says. I don't know how true this is, but it has 7.4 million views. That is a lot. That is a lot. And then as I saw that tweet, I got reminded of what Harada said about PlayStation 6 and also Tekken 9. Back on March 29th, 2024, Harada had Linhart on his Harada's bar, as you can see here. And they start to talk about Tekken 9, the next Tekken, and just their general careers. Harada said, if we were to work on Tekken 9, it would likely be our final project. It was actually hard to answer that question because after releasing Tekken 7, we planned to announce about Tekken 8 2 years later. So Tekken 8 was supposed to come 2 years later after Tekken 7, but that game went on for much longer, so they delayed it. We wanted to develop Tekken 8 right after release of Tekken 7 and ideally release it 5 years after the release of 7. However, it took more than 7 years to release from 7. We didn't think it was going to take that long. Perhaps it's better to wait more because it was really popular. But then we would get old if we waited too long. If we were going to release 9, it's better to do it sooner rather than later. We also want to add new stuff on a previous game, talking about making Tekken 8 better. What I want to try is that. In terms of PlayStation and Xbox, there is PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, right? I think the next will be the release of the PlayStation 6 or the new Xbox. When that happens, I want to release Tekken 9 immediately. That's one thing I would love to do. But we don't know how many years later that will be. We don't know when for sure, so it's a bit scary to say such a thing. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. PlayStation 6 might be released sooner than we expect, but I'd love to release 9 when that happens. When we release 9, we might not even be using consoles or PC gaming devices. There might be a completely unimaginable new technology by then. I'd love to release it on Nintendo platforms too. Michael Murray says true. It's interesting to hear how he kind of already hinted at Tekken releasing on the new Switch way back in March. But what he's saying there about Tekken 9 being a launch title for PlayStation 6 is pretty crazy because this is the thing. Tekken and PlayStation always had this strong relationship. Whenever Tekken released right on the release of the console, it just sold more copies. When any game does that, when any game is a launch title, you have a select number of games that you could purchase. So the chances of someone buying that game becomes higher. Of course, you have like games like Fortnite or like a Call of Duty or like a Rocket League or like a Minecraft that will just update to be compatible with the new software. So the people who are playing those games would play those games. But for everyone else who don't play those games, that's just like, always existing, they will have to like try something new. And Tekken could be that. So I get why Harada would want to release Tekken 9 immediately when the PlayStation 6 drops. I posted to Twitter, Harada wants Tekken 9 to release immediately and be a launch title for PlayStation 6, but fear it will release too soon. Holiday 2027 would give Tekken 8 4 seasons of content just like Tekken 7. He was talking about how Tekken 7 went on for 7 years, and that is counting like the arcade stuff. If you count all of that, because I believe the earliest version of Tekken 7 was like in 2015. So if you go like 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, when did Tekken 8 come out? 21. Tekken 8 came out, yeah, so 7 years, right? So if you count arcades, but if you ignore arcades and you only count from 2017, that's 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, maybe 22. So that's like 5, 6 years. Basically, 4 seasons of content. Now, I don't know if they planned for Tekken 8 to go on for that long. I seen someone in the comment section of this tweet talking about how Harada wants Tekken to go to 2035. I always see people say these things, but I have never seen the quote. I have never seen the source. If someone has it, please send it to me because I would love to read it and maybe make a video about it. But at the same time, I always ask everyone, how many seasons of Tekken 8 do you think there should be? I would say 6. I think ending at 2030 would be great, but if the PlayStation 6 comes sooner in 2027, then it gets dicey because like, do you want to be late into the console generation? Tekken 8 was, Tekken 7 kind of was. So those games proves that you could do it and be successful, but also you do miss out on that huge opening being a launch title. Factor when you're talking about multiple seasons of Tekken 8 is how many characters you get, right? Tekken 7 got 2, 6, 4, 2. Tekken 8 probably will get 4, 4, 4, 4. And if it did that over the course of 6 seasons, like if the game did go on to 2030, then that would be 6 times 4, that's 24. And then you have 32 plus 24, that's 56 characters that would be in Tekken 8 by the end of 2030. That's a lot of characters. You know, I had this big discussion where I was talking about Tekken Tag Tournament 2 being ruined by having a big roster. Tekken 7 also, I believe, started to get very crazy when the roster got really big. If Tekken 8 was to reach that threshold, the game would get really bad as well, right? I do think there should be a type of cap on the roster to prevent that, but also if you do allow the 56 characters, you know, that's everyone will have their character, right? Every character will make it into the game. No character will be left out. Even if your character does show up in the final year, you can still enjoy it and play it. The only thing that we'll have to worry about is one, what that will do to the balancing, what that would do to the bloat, and just the general knowledge that you would require to learn. But then also when you talk about how Tekken 8 released and the roster for Tekken 8 looked very similar to Tekken 7, and now the DLC is going to look very similar to Tekken 7 from what it seems. You will basically have that whole thing repeat itself all over again. The general time frame of this, though, Tekken 8 would be able to get out 4 seasons all the way up until holiday 2027. But if that was the release of PlayStation 9, then what you would need to do is like market Tekken 9 the same time as Season 4 is happening for Tekken 8. Do betas and everything for that game. And then as soon as Season 4 ends for Tekken 8, release Tekken 9. So those two things would be merged to one another. Because if we go back to Tekken 7, with Tekken 7, they did 4 seasons. But they did another year after when they did the 5.0 update. It was the unofficial season 5. No characters, just a little bit of balance. And that is all that they did for Tekken 7 the entire year, while they shifted their attention to Tekken 8. Now, I would imagine it would be probably difficult for them to work on season 4, but then also put together a brand new Tekken game as well. I know their team is pretty big over there at Bandai Namco. They have a lot of different studios helping them out with like outfits and whatnot, but that would probably be way too much to take on. So I like the idea of trying to release Tekken 9 as soon as the PlayStation 6 drop, but the timeline may not line up, and they may have to push it back to 2028, which is still pretty fine. The first year of the lifespan of the game, it's still pretty new. All of the games are still getting a lot of attention. You just don't really want to be like 3-4 years, because at that point, like, you kind of missed out on the wow factor, right? I know we're still very locked into Tekken 8 and we have multiple years left of this game, but just looking at the things that Harada says about it now is so interesting. How one, it might be his final game. He probably will retire after him and Michael Murray. They'll pass the reins to Nakatsu is what it seems. That would be pretty crazy. Nakatsu's done a lot of great work. He worked on Tag 2. He worked on Tekken 7. He's working on Tekken 8. And each iteration of Tekken from Tag 2, 7 to 8, his influence, his presence has only grew more and more and more. Where in Tag 2, he wasn't even mentioned. Tekken 8, he's like doing interviews with the Final Fantasy developers. The guy is definitely moving up and he's positioning himself to be the next Harada when the time comes. So the fact that Tekken 9 will probably be Harada's last game, Michael Murray's last game, Nakatsu takes over, and then also the PlayStation 6, it would be a crazy thing to see.